Hi everyone and welcome to the Fragrance Report. I'm your host Anya and today's episode will be a special edition recap of ScentXplore. If you don't know, ScentXplore is an annual conference held each year in New York City. I went this year, this was my second time attending, and there were so many interesting brands and it was so lovely catching up with people that I recognized from last year, and it was just a great opportunity and great experience all around. But I wanted to film this episode to share with you what we received in our grab bags, tell you about some of my experiences, and also tell you about what brands I found to be the most interesting and what brands to keep an eye out for, especially as we move into 2025. If this is your first time listening to this broadcast, then let me introduce myself. Again, my name is Anya. I publish episodes of this podcast every Wednesday, but if you're also interested in seeing more content, I do have a YouTube channel where I publish 5 days a week under the username ANECHKAFRAGRANCES, and I have an Instagram and TikTok as well. Before we get into this episode, I do want to share with you some of my favorite fragrances that I've been wearing over this past week. First fragrance I want to share with you is actually one that I recently rediscovered because I've been filming a lot of content for end of year, things like end of year favorites, fragrances that really were highlights and standouts for me. And one of the fragrances that I haven't really talked about on this podcast before, but I do think you'll find interesting is Kismet for Men by Maison Alhambra. This is a beautiful, soft, spicy perfume, and it's a must-have if you're interested in sandalwood, vetiver, or soft, spicy accords. This is beautiful. It's stunning. Again, it's from a Middle Eastern brand, Maison Alhambra, but it's only $25. So if you want to hear more about this fragrance, I would definitely check out my YouTube channel and see some of my reviews on there because I talk about this one a lot. But I just wanted to mention this because this has been a fragrance that I've loved for a very long time. And if you're feeling the budget this holiday season and you want to get a new fragrance that's very affordable but also really beautiful, you should definitely check this one out. I don't know what it is, but there's something about travel sizes that just makes me want to wear them more and more. I feel like it's the accessibility and the ease of transportation, to be honest. But my friend actually gifted me this fragrance from Juliet Has a Gun, and this is their Juliet perfume. And I previously had written this fragrance off as just not being my style because I was kind of being a hater, not gonna lie. This has top notes of sour cherry and pink pepper, a mid of jasmine, and then a base of cashmere and tonka bean. This is a perfume that's like very airy, and it kind of has like that cozy cherry, but it has like this like kind of synthetic edge to it. It's very intriguing. It's almost like a musky fragrance, but musk is not listed, but this is like a clean skin musk perfume with cherry. And I really have been enjoying this. I've been wearing this a lot. I do enjoy the sillage on this. And yeah, I was kind of surprised about how much I liked it. And finally, a fragrance combo that I really want to let you guys know about is Silver Saffron by Une Nuit Nomade. This is a new fragrance, and I actually had the pleasure of trying this at ScentXplore, and they did send me a bottle. But this is a really intriguing myrrh, saffron, and raspberry fragrance. It almost has a leather accord to it, but leather is not listed in the notes, which is really fascinating to me. But it literally smells so delicious. It's a perfect unisex perfume for the wintertime. It lasts a really long time. I've been layering it with Viage Shimmering Shanghai. This is a really bright, airy, lychee rhubarb fragrance with musk. But together, these fragrances play off of each other so well. And I've been loving this combination. The brightness of Shimmering Shanghai really adds another layer to Silver Saffron, and together this is a winning combination. So let's get into the ScentXplore fragrance unboxing. So not gonna lie, was not expecting to receive as many fragrances or to get as many fragrances as I ended up coming away with. So I had this duffel bag that I packed with me that I had empty just in case I'd get myself like maybe one bottle and maybe some samples, but their grab bag this year was so much better than last year. We got so much in there. So I'm gonna share some highlights with you. And I also did come away with some full bottles, which I mentioned in last week's podcast. If you missed it, that was a really interesting podcast where I talked about Chanel number 5 and the history behind the brand. And you can also check out my ScentXplore full bottle fragrance haul in that podcast episode. So some highlights that we are going to talk about today was this discovery set that they included from Viage. I was again not expecting to receive so much in the grab bag, but they sent over or they put in a sampler set for their essences line. This is, I think, their 3 new fragrances. So this is a sample set. I have not opened this, but that was nice to receive from them. Another nice surprise was from the brand QHUE New York. This was a brand I was really interested in trying out, and I stopped by their booth and I really liked their fragrances. I felt like they were super interesting and kind of innovative, and I really did appreciate that. I'm looking forward to exploring this brand further, but they included their Empire collection as a discovery set in the grab bag. The fragrance brand My Geisha included a travel spray of their cannabis perfume. I don't know about you, but sometimes I get a little bit nervous about fragrances that have the note of cannabis because I get where people are coming from when it comes to maybe I guess like being more innovative with fragrance notes, but I always get afraid that someone will think that I'm like trying to spark it up with a cannabis perfume. So yeah, I don't know. I've always been kind of like nervous about cannabis and fragrances. We also have a fragrance discovery set from Free Yourself. Free Yourself was a really interesting brand to discover and visit at ScentXplore because they have a lot of really interesting, I don't want to say skin scents, but like if you're interested in like simple, kind of straightforward scents, this is a really good one because they work with the different elements. So they have a perfume inspired by air, water, faux. I don't know what faux means in French, but I'm trying to translate. So they have air, eau, which is water, faux. I looked this up and that word actually means fire in French, so they're going for the 4 elements with this collection. This is an American brand, but they do like to use French language in their fragrances. So their discovery set was really cool. And also they were really, really nice. I really like when fragrance brands are genuinely nice to everyone that visits. I know it can be very high pressure to go to these conferences and to spend a lot of money to have a booth, but to be honest, I really do appreciate it when brand owners are kind and welcoming. That's a highlight that I really remember when it comes to interacting with brands. So that's kind of a rough preview of what they gave in the grab bag. I do think it was definitely an improvement compared to what we got last year. And I didn't mention all the other samples, and I think that there was an exclusive fragrance that was created by a brand for ScentXplore, which was also included, but I am in the process of moving. So I have packed up so many things that I think I unintentionally packed up a significant portion of samples and maybe a few other things. So yeah, I hope that gives you a good idea of what we did receive though. And I will say this year they had a much better grab bag than last year. I think last year they had some samples. This year they definitely knocked it out of the park with the discovery sets, and they definitely had a lot more items this year. Another thing that I really noticed that I liked was they added on an extra day for ScentXplore. Previously, last year, it was just 2 days, and to be honest, that was extremely hectic and it was so hard to see everything. This year, I'm very happy to report that I was able to experience almost every single brand that showed up, which was definitely amazing, and I'm really glad about that. I anticipate maybe next year they will add on even more days, but I think 3 days was definitely an improvement from last year. Now let's talk about some of the highlights when it came to the brands that were exhibiting at ScentXplore. These were some of the brands that really stood out to me when it came to not only their fragrances, but also their representatives, the innovation behind the brand. I was really impressed by a lot of these brands, and I'm excited to see what they have to offer and learn more about them. But the first brand that I really have to give a spotlight to would be Une Nuit Nomade. I have been such a fan of Une Nuit Nomade for a really long time. They are a wonderful beautiful brand. They are based in Paris, and something that I will always talk about is the fact that they are a luxury niche brand that make it really easy and accessible for potential customers to try their products. They make an effort to make sure that they are selling decants and travel sprays and samples of their fragrances. They have amazing discovery sets with vouchers that give you money off of future purchases. And in general, the people behind the brand are so kind and passionate about their craft, and that really comes through in the customer experience. Something I do want to spotlight is they had been launching their Extrait line, which includes 3 fragrances in the Extrait concentration. And I am so excited about this line because not only are they elevating their formula, but they're also including a new bottle design and aesthetic for these fragrances. And these 3 fragrances they've launched with initially include Jardin de Misva, which is the Extrait version of Jardin de Misva, Silver Saffron, and Estrella de la Mañana. The 2 fragrances that most definitely stood out to me when it came to their fragrances were Estrella de la Mañana, which was this dry chocolate fragrance, and Silver Saffron, which to me smelled like a leather fragrance. Even though leather is not listed, it's a leather fragrance with raspberry and myrrh and saffron. Both those fragrances, the intensity was really, really good. The quality was amazing, and I love the new bottle design. So those were 2 fragrances that I was really excited to learn some more about. Another highlight was Arquise. Now, I visited their booth several times and ended up purchasing a fragrance from them, but this is a brand that has been founded by Carlos Huber, and he's a Mexican-born architect, restoration expert, and fragrance designer, and he was inspired to create a brand with fragrances that transport you to historical sites and different moments in history. So a lot of his fragrances are inspired by fragrances or different periods of time. So some of the fragrances are inspired by moments in the 1500s, things like that. I found that to be very inspiring and really interesting. And this is a quote from their website, and they say, "A scent is a time capsule. It can invoke our most intimate memories and dreams and open doors to distant worlds." Their brand is considered the first international niche brand created by a Mexican designer, and they also work with a variety of notable names like J. Crew, St. Regis, and Trudon. So I really enjoyed learning more about their line, and also they have a fragrance or a candle inspired by their Dachshund. They have like a mascot. It was a Dachshund. I think he was Carlos's dog. I'm not sure, but they literally had a dachshund at the booth with them, and it was so cute. He was such a sweet boy. He was adorable, and he has a candle named after him and basically inspired by him. So that was adorable. I loved seeing that. Another interesting brand was a Brazilian founded brand, Granado. Now, there were several Brazilian brands at ScentXplore. It's really interesting to see the international brands come together at an event like this because typically in the US, we oftentimes are so exposed to the American brands that we kind of miss the international ones, and that's what I really find a lot of inspiration from, learning about international brands and trying their fragrances. And so there were a lot of Brazilian brands there. So one big highlight was Granado. So Granado is actually a Brazilian brand that's been around for a really long time, and they had a full display. They had a lot of fragrances, and I really liked a lot of their perfumes. I found them to be very zesty and refreshing. They're not necessarily fragrances that are powerhouses. They're more like summer appropriate perfumes, which is very much in fitting with the Brazilian climate. I've never been to Brazil, but I've heard it's really hot there. So I feel like that's very much in keeping with what they are as a brand. And they are actually expanding in the US. So that was really interesting to see. Another brand that was definitely a highlight was Reinvented Parfum. They actually invited me to the launch party for 2 of their new fragrances, Ethereal Soul and Ode to Psyche. And I was very glad to go, of course. But I was also really interested in just like revisiting with them and trying out Ethereal Soul as well, because Ethereal Soul, by the way, if you're interested in cherry and black currant and raspberry, is such a gorgeous gourmand, and that fragrance truly is a powerhouse. So it was definitely a pleasure to visit Reinvented, to try some of their fragrances out again. Of course, I love Epiphany from them. I think that's a fantastic perfume, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they come out with in the future. Another brand that I really, really loved was M. Micallef. Now, they have a few new releases coming in 2025. I don't think I can talk about them, but there's one release that's meant to be a more masculine release, but I tried that and I was like, this will be the perfect fragrance for the fall time. So I'm looking forward to that. That is literally launching next fall in 2025. So we have a while to wait. But ANECHKAFRAGRANCES was definitely a highlight. It was wonderful visiting with them and their team. Another highlight was Room 1015. Now they have a new fragrance coming early next year, and I'm actually really excited about it. It's going to be a fragrance with white florals and mango, and I tried that and I was extremely impressed. This perfume will be called Jasmine Freak, and what really impressed me about this one is how unique of a take it is when it comes to the mango note, because mango can be a little bit overdone. So many fragrance brands have been coming out with like a mango smoothie type mango, and that to me has just been a little bit too redundant. But this was definitely a new and interesting twist on the mango note, and I did enjoy smelling that one. I also got to experience some Snif fragrances and finally try out all their perfumes. Snif is a brand I've been very curious about for quite some time now. Obviously, they have their display at Ulta, but I was interested in trying some of their secret menu items and particularly interested in testing Honey Sweet and Naughty Nona. So Honey Sweet is a fragrance that was created by Amelia. Her username is Professor Perfume. I have met her several times. She is wonderful, and I love, by the way, I love her sweater collection. If you check her page, you will notice she has the most amazing style. She has like the most cozy sweater outfits. I know that's super niche, but if you are interested in some cozy winter style inspiration, you should definitely check out her stories. But Amelia created Honey Sweet, and let me tell you, it is gorgeous. It's just the right touch of honey. It's nothing too overt. It's a little bit more on the subtler side compared to other honey fragrances that I've smelled, because so many other honey perfumes really lean into that honey note, and sometimes you just want something that's very comforting and cozy. So I really did love Honey Sweet, and I also enjoyed Naughty Nona, and I usually am not a fan of fruitcake, and Naughty Nona is inspired by fruitcake. I do not like eating it, but I do love smelling that fragrance. It was a gourmand done in a very natural smelling, beautiful way, no notes. It just smelled really beautiful and definitely a delicious gourmand perfume for the wintertime, and I thought it was a very cozy fragrance. Of course, Navitus was in attendance, and they had 3 new releases from some content creators, and we were so excited to try them out. First was Vanilla Eclat. This was created by Christine over at the Perfume Nest. This was a beautiful basmati rice perfume that really leaned into the buttermilk note. So if you love like tonic, creamy fragrances and you're looking for a good buttermilk fragrance, that would be an amazing option. Of course, Tempt Me Not by Noelle was absolutely a highlight. That is such a gorgeous gourmand if you're interested in toffee, if you love like tonic fragrances, but you don't want anything too sour, if you want something that's more like milky and vanilla, that is a beautiful perfume. Very much enjoyed that one. And of course, Sharita's new launch, Peach Aurum, was also divine. It was essentially inspired by peach cobbler, and it was absolutely delicious. All 3 of those fragrances were amazing highlights, and I loved being one of the first people to smell them. So that was truly a wonderful experience. And having Sharita and Noelle there as well was really great because we got to see them try out their fragrances and smell them in the bottles for the first time, which was so fun. I loved that. I was literally like chasing them with the cameras. I was like, we need to film you guys doing this because this is an amazing moment. So of course we got them on video, so that was a really sweet moment as well. Another really intriguing brand was J.U.S. I was super interested in their fragrances. They are a perfumery based in Japan, and they were actually established in 1998, and they had a few really interesting releases and fragrances to look at. They have a new perfume, and one that I really loved was actually, I think, a fragrance inspired by animalic notes. This perfume is literally called Sacred Animal. I found it to be very compelling and intriguing. It has notes of cocoa and vanilla combined with animalic accords, and I found that to be my favorite from their line that I smelled. Another brand that I really do think you need to keep your eye on if you tend to love gourmands specifically is Azha. That is Azha. They have a new fragrance line coming out in early 2025, and we tried one of their fragrances called Arabian Tea House, and it was so delicious. There were dates, it was roses, there was so much going on there. It was absolutely divine. It essentially had notes of coffee, date, saffron, some rose, jasmine, and vanilla. They had another fragrance that I also really loved called Baklava. This had bergamot, cardamom, pistachio, lavender, orange blossom, vetiver, and vanilla. There's some other notes as well, but I'm just skimming. And of course, I really, really loved this other fragrance with suede from them, suede and incense actually, called Bedouin. And this perfume had additional notes of rose and oud. So I really did enjoy this brand. They were wonderful people. And by the way, their fragrances are also really affordably priced as well. So I think that's a brand to keep an eye out for if you're interested in trying out some new brands. Another brand that just launched last year is House of Noya. They have a few fragrances that launched, including a new gourmand release. This release is called Marshmallow Cloud, and that was a really beautiful kind of a cotton candy marshmallow fragrance. Not as explicitly marshmallow as, say, Kayali's marshmallow perfume. It was kind of like a cotton candy-ish gourmand. I really enjoyed that one. And they also had an additional selection of fragrances that were inspired by bodies of water. So to finish this off, I do want to give you a preview of what I saw trending at ScentXplore, and these were some kind of overarching opinions, what I saw from smelling all the different fragrances. I definitely do think that perfumers will start experimenting with different fragrance notes, specifically Asian fragrance notes like tea, rice. That's something I saw a lot of. I also saw a lot of like tonic fragrances, a lot of fragrances with oud, resins, things like that. Gourmands are definitely going to be here to stay, but I saw a lot of brands come out with some interesting twists on gourmand perfumes. I don't think we're going to be seeing gourmand perfumes in the way we have been seeing them in the past. I think perfumers are starting to become even more creative with what they combine with those gourmand notes to create new fragrances. There's actually a new perfume coming out that I cannot talk about from one of the brands that I already mentioned that they shared with me, and I was so obsessed with this fragrance. I am going to get this fragrance as soon as it launches. All in all, there were several sneak previews that some perfumers shared at ScentXplore. Can't talk about them, but let me tell you, 2025 is about to be an amazing year for new fragrance releases. You guys are going to love what's coming out. You are going to be very impressed. If you do want to see more content in terms of vlogs, content from ScentXplore, I would highly recommend taking a look at some of the creators that I was hanging out with that weekend. They are absolutely wonderful, and I will be mentioning their users' names on TikTok so you guys can go follow them and watch their content, because to be completely honest with you, I did not get a chance to edit that many vlogs. Unfortunately, I've just been so busy, but if you want to see some more real-time footage and vlogs, definitely follow Stacy Fragrance Beauty. Her username is GlowQuest with an underscore. Also, Kirsten Fragrances is absolutely lovely. She does some really great reviews. Her username is kristen.fragrances. Holly over at Parfums de Holly was also a really great person to meet. She did a kind of vlog series over the weekend. In fact, several of the girls did that, so I would definitely suggest checking out their content, watching their videos, subscribing to their TikToks, because they had some truly amazing content and takeaways. So that's it for this podcast episode. Let me know, what did you think of some of my takeaways? Did you go to ScentXplore? And if so, what were your takeaways? What are you excited about? Yeah, I came away really inspired and motivated by this particular year at ScentXplore. There was a lot to see, a lot to interact with, and it's great to see the same people come back over and over again. It's great to start recognizing people, and it was also wonderful to meet some of you, so that was another highlight. Anyway, that's it for this podcast episode. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Bye. This episode's music was brought to you by Kevin McLeod over at Incompetech. This is Beauty Flow by Kevin McLeod at incompetech.com and is licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license.